You guys are gonna love this one, man. Like, trust me. I've been waiting to do an article like this. It's been a few weeks since we've had one of these, and I am hyped, man. The day I realized my husband had changed the locks after I had an affair and was left pounding on the door, pleading, sickened and furious. Well, you clearly didn't need him, right? Why don't you just go cry to the guy you had an affair with? See, this is how guys need to start responding. It is confusing to me why, like, so many guys, like, even if their ex-wife is just pulling out all stops, trying to take everything from them, trying to make them self Minecraft, they still refuse to fight back. Like, well, I still love her. I can't do that to her. She's not your friend anymore. She's your enemy. Get that through your thick skull. She is your enemy now. Guys, my hand was shaking. Hashtag literally shaking. Was that why the key to the front door of my flat wouldn't go in properly? It was one of those hefty Yale locks, and as I twisted and probed, I thought perhaps I was just too tired and upset to even open the door. But no, I tried over and over, and it was clear this key, my house key, would not open this door. I stared at it in disbelief. My husband had changed the lock. If she caught him cheating, I don't know if she would have changed the lock. I think she would have just filed a restraining order and stolen everything. While I was away visiting my elderly parents, he had called a locksmith to our marital home and locked me out of it. Even now at 53, a long 14 years later, this moment remains one of the most emotionally charged of my entire life. Yeah, the first time I've ever had to experience consequences for my actions. Yeah, honestly, experiencing consequences for your actions, if it's an unusual thing for you, it does leave quite the effect on you, man. Yeah, and it came back in full technicolor when I read Amanda Platel's harrowing piece in Female Magazine earlier in this month on being a wronged wife and ending her marriage. So I'm assuming that this woman she's referring to was cheated on and she ended the marriage. And now this cheater is trying to play the victim as, oh, yeah, I totally understand. Yeah, I went through the same thing when I cheated on my husband and he retaliated. Yeah. Can you believe the nerve of that guy? Yeah, that's a good point. Visiting her elderly parents, BS. The oldest excuse in the books. Yeah, she was probably with the other dude. No, except I was literally on the other side of the door. I was the wrongdoer, the one who was having an affair. Well, at least she admits it. I'll give credit there. While Amanda changed the locks and then sat indoors sipping whiskey and listening to her husband's ever more frantic pleas to open up, I was the one in the hallway outside the flat, out in the cold. When I read Amanda's story, what intrigued me most was not her devastation at her husband's infidelity, but her regret at how quickly she ended the marriage once she discovered it. Why would she regret it? Like, oh, let me guess. Her regret was probably more along the lines of, oh, I could have milked more out of him before doing this. And looking back, she thinks the abruptness of the way she did it the very evening she found out was too harsh, too brutal. I agree. Yeah, as the one who was on the other side. Yes, I was in the wrong to cheat, but the pain and humiliation I felt at the way my marriage of 8 years ended, also within hours of my husband's discovery, affected me every single day for years. Actions have consequences. Yeah, whenever they go off alone, they're always scheming. Well, I don't think she was going off alone. I think she was actually with the other guy at the time. So was my immediate exile from the marriage really the right thing for my husband to do? Is a horribly wounded pride a good enough reason to throw away years of mutual support and, yes, happiness? Would you accept the same excuse from him? If you caught him cheating, would you think the same way? Probably not. I knew he knew about 10 hours before I came home to change the lock, or to the changed lock. I was just leaving my parents' house. Is that what you call your boyfriend's house? In the U.S. to catch a flight back to London when he rang on the landline and asked bluntly, "Are you having an affair?" Yeah, for a moment, I thought I was going to be sick. He said he had proof, photos. I thought of the laptop in our flat, which I'd left unlocked. Had he seen the pictures of me and the other man, read our emails? So at least here, I think she makes the right choice here. So what should I say to him? How dare you accuse me of that? Of course, I'm not having an affair. Why? Why are you? But I told the truth instead. Yes, I am. Then the line went dead. Honestly, at least she didn't lie. And this, by the way, this is the smart decision. Because if somebody asks you this, like right out of the blue, it's because they already have the proof. Like, I know with me, if I only had a suspicion, I wouldn't flat out ask it this way. But once I have all the receipts, once I have the proof, that's when I'd ask, like, hey, honey, there's something you want to tell me? Like a couple of extra dudes you've been seeing, maybe? Then start listing them, listing their names, maybe. If someone is flat out asking you that, it's because they already know. And they want you, they basically just want to see how you react. Yeah, why even ask? Well, it's to lay a trap. So they'd probably be recording it. They'd ask if you're cheating, and then you start flipping out, accusing them of being the cheaters and projecting. And how dare you accuse me of something like this, and putting on the waterworks like, I can't believe you don't trust me. And then you pull out the evidence to prove it and watch them go silent. And then you send the recording of that to all their friends and family. That's the kind of stuff. But if you just admit it, at least they can't do any further damage. So I spent the flight home from Chicago in a state of barely repressed hysteria. I felt like a chasm had opened up in front of me and I was falling into it. He had timed that call when inflicting maximum pain with no prospect of relief. It's all about you, isn't it? Like forget about how your infidelity had hurt him. Him calling you out had a negative effect on you. You're the real victim here. That's right. Poor girl. How dare he treat you poorly after you cheated on him? I tried calling and texting in the cab on the way home from Heathrow, but there was no reply. It was midday London time, and I had no idea if he'd be in. Absurdly, my bags were full of American goodies, including huge jars of peanut butter, and they weighed a ton. You're strong and independent, Whammons. You can handle it. The driver helped me drag them to the entrance of the mansion block. Mansion? She was rich? But I needed help to get them up the steep stairs to our flat. But flat implies it's an apartment, right? Wait, does mansion mean something different in Airstrip 1? Because I know flat is apartment, but mansions don't have apartments, do they? So I rang the buzzer once, twice, several times more in vain, looking up to the large front windows. I saw one of the heavy curtains twitch. Yes, he was at home, but he wasn't answering the intercom. I dragged the cases through the communal hall and up the stairs myself. Oh, maybe it was an actual mansion. Yeah. So maybe so maybe they have an actual mansion and they were in one of the rooms in that mansion. Like they like rent out the rooms individually. That's possible. Or converted mansion. All right. Now it's starting to make more sense. So it's a mansion that's become an apartment building, probably for some very rich people. You can't have your own mansion, but you can share this one with other people. Does my ex ever wonder today, as Amanda does, whether he was too hasty with the locksmith, too vengeful? I have no idea. Watch, he's actually happy with another woman right now. Like, if you were to ask him now, watch his responses. Amanda, wait, who? I don't even remember her. I'm done. I put that behind me. All I know is that as soon as I realized the keys did not work, I pounded on that door, screaming, let me in. Oh, please let me in. And feeling sorry and sickened and furious. I kicked the door several times, shaking it on its hinges. I swore and pleaded and wept. Oh, he should have called the cops at that point. Yeah, I'm sure he was there. I thought I could hear him moving right by the door on the other side. It wasn't a big flat, and he couldn't help but hear every word of my desperate begging. Now, imagine being the neighbors having to put up with this. Like you're just trying to watch TV or have sex with your wife or, do whatever else it is you do. And you had to listen to that hysterical screaming out in the hallway. That was the worst part of living in an apartment, What was that damn shared hallway with its echoing and noise amplification? Yeah, was he gloating? Was he enjoying hearing how much power he had, or was he just crushed and hurt and in agony? It was actually probably a combination of all of the above. He probably just didn't want to deal with you anymore. After what you did, he knows he can't trust you. So he's probably like, "No, I'm done. I'm I'm done. I want to move on from this as soon as possible." Now, the fact that he didn't tell her that before she got on the plane, though, he clearly wanted her to suffer a little bit. And not knowing what else to do, I actually phoned the police. My voice hoarse, tears running down my face, but they said it wasn't their business. I've been outside for 15 minutes, maybe half an hour, maybe longer. Oh my God, being outside for half an hour? Is that torture by today's standards? Time had no meaning in that space on that landing with my stupid suitcases filled with gifts and goodies and my idiotic keys belonging to no lock at all. I mean, maybe it was in the dumpster. You could have found, you could have at least found your your keys lock. It could have happened. The truth is, my affair was a symptom of an unraveling marriage rather than its cause, and yet I still maintain it could have been saved. Oh, you maintain that? Look, you're the one that got dumped, so you're maintaining it could have been saved. I'm sure you weren't thinking that when you thought you were going to be the one to end it. It began when my career as a urinalist and irony upon irony, agony aunt came to be a grinding halt owing to the recession. And at the same time, my husband's career in writing took off. Like Amanda, who admits to prioritizing her career over her marriage, he was always out while I was at home all day. Once our flat had been a wonderful sanctuary and a place for friends to gather, we were known for huge Halloween parties we threw in the big main room with its 12-foot ceiling. But then gradually over time, we stopped partying together. He was no longer quite so proud to have me on his arm, or so it felt. It, it felt, you see, or so it felt. She let her feelings lead her to some speculation, and she went out and cheated on her dude, paid the price. Now she's the victim. Indeed, it often seemed as though he didn't care much about the marriage, full stop. He was on the up, popular and in demand, making a lot of money with accolades and appreciation for his work, and I rarely saw him. He was working most of the time or out with his friends. Meanwhile, I sat at home smoking and playing endless games of solitaire on my laptop. I was on the outside of his life looking in. I dare say Amanda's husband felt the same way when her busy life as a newspaper executive meant he didn't see her for days on end. Well, and this is a catch-22 for guys. If you don't make enough money, she's unhappy. If you have to be out to make more money, then the problem is you're never available when she needs you. You can't have both, you know. Well, you can, I guess, if you get a rich enough man, like someone who already has money and doesn't need to work. But as I keep saying, chances are he could probably get a better girl than you. So now I look back and realize we didn't talk about any of these problems that had begun to plague our marriage, or at least if we did, nothing changed. I tried to work on our relationship, but I felt alone in that effort. So you decided to end it by cheating and then got mad when he's the one that locked you out. They say resentment is the chief killer of a marriage, and yes, I think we both felt it. I resented his apparent disinterest in me, and I suspected he grew weary of paying all the bills because I hadn't worked in months. To be fair, he was always a generous man, but I felt as if I'd fallen to earth. I had been the big earner. Now I couldn't even afford to take away coffee. So you couldn't live being in the opposite situation, huh? I should have gone to therapy, but frankly, I didn't want to ask him to pay for that. That is okay. I could sympathize with that concern. Like, I have a problem and I think I need therapy. But if I ask him to pay for it, that's like part of what I think I need it for. That's awkward. And I didn't think marriage counseling was something he'd do. I remember asking our cleaner, who also ran a hotel cleaning agency, if he could get a shift job. If I could get a shift job cleaning hotels. You're not tough enough, she said, looking me straight in the eye. The truth hurts, doesn't it? Oh, God. That's when I began the affair. You literally just proved her point. Look, you're not tough enough for this. I need to go console myself in Chad's arms now. He proved it. He was married too, and we had been friends for a couple of years before the line was crossed. I crossed it because I was desperate not to feel so bleak, such a failure, and so alone. When a woman cheats, It's always because, like, oh, he didn't pay attention to me. I didn't feel he loved me. He didn't provide for my needs. When a man cheats, it's obviously because he's a cheating dick, right? He's an asshole. Oh, you should never cheat. Why are you even in a relationship if you're going to cheat? Oh, how could you do that to her? I'd have a lot more sympathy if it wasn't for these double standards. Now, with him, I felt listened to and understood. He made time for me, and that made me feel hopeful. And that despite my career downturn, I wasn't a lost cause. And then you went and basically proved it. So the affair was honestly a desperate and stupid attempt at personal salvation, not marital punishment. I have no idea how long my husband suspected it, but I do know that it was never supposed to break up our marriage. Women logic right there. Yeah, I had an affair and it was a long running one, but it was never supposed to break up our marriage. I wanted him to still keep me around and keep paying for me. It was a fling, and I knew it would end as quickly and easy as it started. It wasn't a conscious cry for help, but it could be interpreted as one. Yeah, I cheated on him, and I'm the victim here. In my head, I justified it by telling myself my husband no longer cared about me, and now you're justifying it, well, by the previous couple of paragraphs. My marriage made me feel like a zombie, and the affair brought me back to life. But how terribly sad that it had to go to that point, and how stupid of me to break that trust, thinking I had no other options. That is how it felt. That last part is how you should have felt. The day I found the locks changed, I had no option but eventually to go crawling to friends, dragging my enormous suitcases behind me. There was no question of going to my lover's place, of course. There was never any long-term potential in it. I wonder how his wife would have taken it. Oh, that would have made a good Jerry Springer episode. A year after it had began, it was just swiftly over in the heartbeat it took for me to realize what I'd risked and how much I wanted my husband back. I stayed with those friends for a week and had to go back to the marital flat where my husband and I lived for a fortnight in uneasy simmering truce. We both owned the flat, so legally he was obliged to let me in. But he wasn't there very often and tried to avoid me whenever he was. We didn't talk about what happened except through lawyers' letters, which cost a bomb to reply to and always arrived on a Friday to poison the weekend. Oh my God. She probably thinks he did that on purpose too. I spent my days in a haze of conflicting, desperate feelings, stupid, sad, surprised, hysterical. But I knew I wanted to work at our marriage, what shreds were left of it. But guess what? He didn't. Alas, he did not. And that's his right. He had steeled himself against me. I was in despair, and I assumed he was too. He probably was, but he wants to distance himself from the source of his despair, which is you. He doesn't want you back. He already knows the kind of person you are. Though it often felt there's no evidence of that, he looked anxious and angry when he came to the flat, but not sad. Mutual friends said he was coping well. If he was as emotional as you would have probably ripped on him for that too. After several weeks of this mutely furious cohabitation, my husband moved out, and not long after, our beautiful flat was sold. The day the removal men were due, the movers, I started to pack it up alone and slumps to the floor in tears. It wasn't like me to crumble so absolutely, but I didn't want to leave. I wanted the life we had back. Well, whose fault is it that you don't have it? I wasn't happy. Then I realized I needed him. Now I'm even more unhappy. As Amanda acknowledges, now when a bomb goes off in your marriage, you owe it to each other to take the time to find out why. Not really. I mean, depending on, like, if you yourself said, like, your cheating was already a symptom of a failing marriage. Your husband probably felt a little bit of that too. Like, he probably had already given up on the marriage anyway. And you cheating on him was just the last straw. Like, that was what pushed him over the edge to, yeah, let's end this. That enough is enough. So if I had been given the space to talk, explain, and beg forgiveness, perhaps we could have saved what we had. But does he want to, though? This is a misconception a lot of people have. Like, all the talk about rebuilding burned bridges. But what if the person on the other side of that bridge is happier with the bridge being gone? Why would they rebuild it? They never even consider that. Because they are worse off, they just automatically project and assume the other person is too. Well, what if the other person is happier with you gone? What's in it for them to rebuild it? Yeah, in fact, it didn't take long for him to move on. The decree absolute came through, and it just seemed, and it seemed just a few months later he was married again. Oh, the poor sucker. In this case, either he was also cheating on her and he already had another woman, except unlike the guy she was cheating with, he was apparently cheating with a woman that was actually available. So that's a much smarter move right there, I guess. Yeah, so he was already cheating, or he actually was miserable, and a Wayman's he knew pounced. She caught him while he was vulnerable, and got him to commit to her. Or maybe he legit found someone he's still happy with. I don't know. I don't think they're going to go into the identity of the guy. Now, indeed, I admit to uncharitably wondering whether this second relationship was already in the works before we split. I mean, I wouldn't say uncharitably. I think you're well within your rights to think so. Like, dude, if he dumped you because you cheated on him, and it turns out he was cheating on you at the same time, you would have every right to be furious with his hypocritical ass. At that point, like if that happened to me, like if I cheated on a girl and she found out and dumped me because I cheated, and then I found out she's been cheating on me for the past like 2 years anyway, yeah, I'd be mad too. Because at that point, I would know, like, the relationship was probably already over and she just used my cheating as an excuse. And then it turns out that she was doing the same thing. Yeah. Yeah. You'd be well within your rights to wonder. So I'm not going to rip on her for this. Yeah. So if it was in the works before he split, and pondering to the possibility that he too had been unfaithful, I never got the chance to ask him. Although, what would you do? Like, the marriage is already over, the relationship is already destroyed. What would you get out of knowing? Would you get closure out of it, or would it just make you more miserable? I mean, I would like to know personally, just so I could use that to clear my name among any mutuals we might have. Like, anyone who was, ripping on me for cheating is like, yeah, well, she's been cheating longer. Doesn't make it right, but don't destroy me and give her a pass. At least treat us both the same. Yeah, you either forgive us both or you dump us both. Right. No matter, I took all the blame. I was depressed for a long time without about work, and I'm sure he felt exhausted by me. I know he felt betrayed and hurt, and I never wanted to inflict that on him. Why'd you do it though? The fact is, I loved my husband. I didn't marry him because I was planning on having an affair and then a noxious divorce. Well, nobody other than a gold digger anyway, marries expecting the divorce. Of course, people would say that the feelings of hurt and betrayal I experienced when he changed the locks so swiftly are nothing but my own fault. I was a bad wife, a bad woman, a bad person. I was the one who threw it all away. How dare I even speak about my feelings? Bordering on self-awareness. Being locked up by my husband felt like being paraded through the street naked with my head shorn as if I was caught collaborating with the enemy. Oh, even then, you're comparing it to that? All right, this was like in World War II. If a French woman was caught like collaborating with the Nazis and helping the Nazis, that's basically what happened to her. Like, they shaved her head and paraded her through the streets and shamed her. You know what happened to the men who were caught helping the Nazis? You never saw or heard from them again. So, yeah, cry me a river. Oh, you were embarrassed. Boo-hoo. The three guys that were helping you, they're dead. Would you rather be them? Is that the French women helped Nazis because they were winning in their eyes? Well, the Nazis did win. Like, they basically conquered France. Though most friends were wonderful, I did lose some because they had to choose him or me. But when I walk past that old flat, which I do sometimes, I still feel a pang that confounds me. I still feel the trauma of that day when the key no longer fitted, the sudden realization that I'm married to a man who showed me in an instant in the cruelest way that I was no longer worth his time. Now, you kind of did that to him first when you cheated on him, honestly. But yeah, this was probably the first time in her life that she that she experienced these kinds of consequences for her actions, and she couldn't just because I bet seeing the photos in this article of what she looks like now at like 53, she was probably a pretty attractive woman in her younger days. So she probably got used to, like, every time she did something bad, she could just turn on the waterworks to get out of punishment. And this is probably the first time in her life that it didn't work out for her. Yeah, I do feel a wound that doesn't heal. I fear I will feel that forever. Just like your husband will probably will too. Like, again, unless he was also cheating and he just used you as an excuse. Amanda and her ex had an email exchange a couple of years ago in which she admitted that his affair wasn't the only reason the relationship failed. I said it wasn't just him, it was me too who broke our marriage. She writes, she was working so hard and lost sight of what really mattered. Her marriage ended because she refused to examine the problems his affair revealed. We put some pain to rest. We forgave each other. Now, this is one of those things, like, I don't think it's necessary. Like, I don't understand people that just cope and seethe and fume over this years later. Like, if somebody wrongs me, I just don't want anything to do with them ever again. It's not like I'm sitting there every day of my life. Oh my God, like Billy in third grade, I'm never gonna forgive what he did to me that day on the bus. Oh, I can't believe it. There's no need to talk to them. Like, there's no need to even do this. Like, just forget about them and move on. You'd be better off if you just completely cut them out of your life. Yeah, the book of grudges. Exactly. Man, I wish my ex-husband and I could have such an exchange. It's such a kind, mature, and it is such a kind, mature thing to do. Yes, it will make me feel better, but it'll never happen. Yeah, actually, so in this case, I think she could actually use it, because I wouldn't be surprised if her husband already forgot all about her and would rather just not deal with her again. But she's the one that's still dwelling on it. She's the one that can't let it go. He moved on months after the divorce, and he was already getting on with his life. But she's the one that can't forget this. Oh, I've tried to contact him many times over the years, but he has locked me out of any communication. I am dead to him. Get the hint. Move on. Forget about him. There's nothing you can do about this anymore. And while I still want that sense of closure, the ultimate vengeance is that I will never get it. As my friend once said, speaking of her own affair, the pain is the price of what you have done. Yes! At least your friend has some self-awareness. But it's funny. Like, it's almost as if literally everyone in that circle is having affairs. Now, I gotta wonder, was this whole affair epidemic always a thing? It's just it was a lot harder to bust people back in the day? Or is this a new thing? I don't know. It'd be pretty hard to get to the truth of the matter because no one's going to tell the truth. No, it does not have to be like this. Affairs don't have to end marriages, like Amanda. And now that I am older, and I know a number of couples who have worked through infidelity and came out on the other side. For how long, though? Like, okay, if you have kids together, all right, we'll stick together until the kids are grown up. Then we go our separate ways. Maybe you just got to accept the quote unquote open relationship. It's like, oh, you cheated on me, huh? Well, okay, that means, I'm willing to stay with you, but you have no right to complain when I'm seeing other women now, though. Maybe something like that. I don't know. I admire them. I'm sure it's not easy, but it seems they have solid, realistic relationships where hearing and forgiveness can happen rather than being married to Mr. Vengeance. I don't think a mature person keeps dialogue open as much as they can. Or I do think they keep dialogue open. Well, but look, why do we fetishize having a dialogue so much? Like, sometimes, like, if you can't even agree with the other person on what reality is, it's better to just cut communication completely. Some people aren't worth maintaining relationships with. And the only time I saw my ex after the divorce was when he walked in front of my car as I was driving in central London, but he didn't even notice it was me. I mean, when I'm walking down the street, I don't exactly look at the drivers of all the cars near me either. Though I grieved for my marriage for many years, I moved on. Eventually, my story does have a happy ending. Today, I have a lovely, intelligent, handsome boyfriend who is also an excellent cook, and he puts up with me, and that can't be easy. Well, I mean, at least you have some self awareness here. What's the difference with him? We can talk and laugh a lot more. We communicate and have no reason to ever cheat on him. Look, you probably said the same thing about your ex husband until you had a reason to cheat on him. How many years were you dating? How many years were you married before you cheated? I'm sure you had no reason to cheat on your ex-husband either until you had a reason. It's going to be the same thing with this guy. She has no reason to cheat on him now until she does. But we'll see. I mean, hopefully everyone involved can move on and have their happy endings. Just have a bit of self-awareness and stop trying to play the victim, you know? You did this, you have to live with the consequences. Does that mean you are literally the worst person ever? No. But I could understand your husband for wanting to just completely cut you out of his life. You just need to accept that and move on and forget about him. If you can't, like, I can't see how you'll ever be happy unless you could let him go.